Dan Lydiate is back. What's impressed you, and why have you brought him back at this time?
Yeah, we think, excuse me, he's a form 6 in the competition, has been throughout the season. He brings a lot of experience. We had a good look at some young players. No doubt we'll get onto them in a minute, but some young players in the autumn series, and we know what they can do, what their work-ons are. Clear messages have been sent to those that have missed out. But in terms of Dan, he brings a wealth of experience, and I think he's back playing some of his best rugby. I think in the Six Nations, we're going to need a lot of that experience.
You mentioned some of those younger players, Shane Lewis-Hughes and James Botham, haven't made it. How close were they?
Yeah, obviously in our discussions, in terms of both players have been spoken to. In terms of James, if we look at him first, Scott McLeod, I just about said, my apologies. Josh McLeod was the original selection for the Six Nations last season. Unfortunately got injured the day before against Glasgow, so we just feel that he deserves an opportunity. Obviously, James did well when he came in, and he's got a big future in the game. We just think at the moment, Josh is probably just that little bit further ahead in his physicality, and we're certainly going to need that in the Six Nations. Shane Lewis-Hughes, obviously, it was another interesting discussion. I talked about the experience that Dan brings and his form at the moment. Shane, when we look at putting the squad together, it was probably a choice there between the experienced player in form and the young man. And in terms of this particular competition and what we want to get out of it, we then looked at the other players that can play six and in multiple positions, like Josh Navidi, Aaron Wainwright. So they bring more experience in other positions. So in terms of the balance of the loose forwards, that's why we've gone that way. And
you've named Josh Navidi, so you're obviously confident he's over his concussion?
Yeah, well, he is over it because he's been named to play rugby this Friday. So that was a green light for us. Obviously, as we saw in the situation with the naming of the last squad, things can happen, and that's why every player that has been left out has been spoken to, and they know exactly where they stand and what their work-ons are.
And in terms of the players who have been left out, you've obviously got Thomas Williams available again. No Rhys Webb. You've stuck with Kieran Hardy and Gareth Davis. Why hasn't Rhys made it the squad this time around?
Yeah, again, for us, form, and also, Webb, Rhys and I had a good chat this morning around, the accuracy of his passing game, which he needs to work on, get those numbers back up. And we just question, his pace at the top end of the game. The other three all bring electric pace. We know that, and that's something that's in question at the moment with Rhys. But he is not out of the loop in terms of playing for Wales in the future. He's just not going to be available or selected for this tournament at this stage.
You mentioned Dan was the form 6, Wayne. Did you have a look at Jamie Roberts at 12? Because he's been playing quite well in the centres. You've retained the centres that you've had for the autumn.
Yeah, we did. And when we say form, we look at forms at both levels of the game. And we looked at Dan's form, the level he's played at. We've looked at Jamie's form. I've spoken with Jamie. But we looked at, for a guy coming in, we'd like to see him at that age starting as opposed to being in around the squad where we can have a younger guy for development purposes. So it's a bit of a balancing act. In Johnny Williams, we believe we've got a 12 there who played very, very well at the top level of the game against England and has a big future in the game. So Johnny is our man at 12. We've got Owen Watkin there who can play 12 or 13. Nick Tompkins, 12 or 13, and Jonathan Davies, who's obviously well known as a 13, who we think in the future might be able to play 12 as well.
And Jared Evans is back at 10. Obviously, Rhys Patchell's injured. What has he brought? And there's been plenty of external talk about Rhys Priestland returning, Wayne. Was that ever a possibility?
Jared's been brought in, yes. He was left out of the autumn series, and he's been given parts of his game to work on, which is basically the kicking side of his game. So Neil Jenkins has been involved in that process, and Stephen Jones. He's been working solidly behind the scenes with that, and so we're interested to see how that's developing. So he comes in. We know about his running game, and we know he's a gutsy defender. In terms of Rhys, yeah, we've asked a question along the lines of the Rhys Webb question when that was done at the time. We have injuries, obviously, to Rhys Patchell, who's coming back from well-documented head knock, and he's now in a reconditioning program. He's been out of the game for a while, and obviously Gareth Anscombe is still out. So for us, it's about can we select Rhys if we need to call upon him, and that question has been asked. And so we've selected what we have on the basis of they're available, and we now know whether or we can't use Rhys should we get further injury.
Does that mean you can use Rhys, Wayne? They have said yes.
No, we can't.
Okay, you can't. Okay, thank you. And in just of terms of the second rows, your captain is obviously out at the moment, injured. Will he be fit? And you've named Jake Ball, even though he's obviously leaving for Australia in the summer. Was that always going to be the case?
Yeah, we're looking at, again, form, the tournament itself, the importance of this particular tournament in terms of Jake Ball. He had good form prior to his injury. He's 100% over that injury. He's playing Friday night. Rhys Jones is in training with us at the moment and is flying. He's on track for the Island Games, so he's been named accordingly.
And final one, thoughts on the tournament, Wayne? It's a very different Six Nations with no crowds. How are you approaching it, and how do you think it's going to pan out?
Yeah, it's disappointing because we had the first tournament pre-lockdown, which was, from a fan's point of view, they can't get to support their teams. From our point of view, having a live audience there, it just adds to the occasion and it lifts the players tremendously. And for our boys, playing at home in front of a home crowd means so much to them. So it's disappointing not having them there, but it's the world we live in. We accept that, and we have to crack on. But look, it's a fantastic tournament. We didn't perform as well as we would have liked in the last tournament. We know now it's about results, and we've selected a team that we believe will give us the best opportunity to improve our performances week in and week out. And obviously, we're here to win the tournament.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Hi, Wayne. Liam Williams got a red card against the Blues a couple of weeks ago and followed it up with a comment to the referee as he was leaving. Have you spoken to him, or will you speak to him about those sort of incidents? They have cropped up in his career earlier on, but obviously now he's a very experienced guy. I guess you kind of expect a little bit more than that. Yeah,
I've spoken to Liam. I spoke to him on the weekend that it happened. I was at the game. It was disappointing. Everyone concerned, I guess. But look, Liam's been out of the game for a while. He's a frustrated player that just wants to get out there. He hasn't had the contact. He's that sort of person. He's a physical player by nature. And look, he made an error of judgment, and he pays the price now by missing 3 matches of rugby, which doesn't help his preparation for the Six Nations. So, he'll miss a test match as a result.
And I just want to have a chat about Rhys Jones, if I could as well. A guy who's been moved around a bit earlier in his career, perhaps setting his development back when he was trying to be converted to the other side of the scrum. What have you made of him? Obviously, you've got a couple of injuries on the loose head, but what has he done perhaps to catch your eye?
Yeah, so you're right. He was a loose head by trade early on in his career, and he had big raps on him at the Scarlets. He went across to the tight head and probably stalled his career a little bit. Back to the loose head with the Ospreys. I've been in dialogue with Toby Booth, who rates him as probably one of his better destructive loose heads. Discipline-wise at scrum, he's very good. And he's an experienced player that's played in this competition before. So, there were other players in the discussion, Gareth Thomas, Corey Domachowski, but at the end of the day, we went with that little bit of experience and the fact that he's probably the most disciplined in that position. And just finally from me, just a bit of housekeeping. With regards to the bubble rules that you guys are going to be under, obviously, under normal circumstances, your English-based players would have to go back to their clubs in fallow weeks. Are they still going to have to go back, even considering the way things are with COVID at the moment? Look, it's an ongoing discussion at the moment. It's very topical, obviously, and it's one that everybody's looking for some clarification over, and we will get that. I believe, it would be sensible for everybody and under the current climate that we certainly don't want to be having players coming and going because, as you see out in the community at the moment, this new variant is transferred very, very quickly, and we've seen that in other sports teams. So we would certainly like any players that we pick from outside of Wales, if we could, to have them full-time. We're just waiting for an answer on that. And sorry, just quickly one more. You mentioned the new variant at the moment. I know in the autumn players were allowed to leave on their days off. Is that still going to be the case? Are they still going to be able to go back to their family homes on a day off, or will you keep them in camp for the entire period of the tournament? Yeah, it's going to be a balancing act between the two. So they will be in camp and expected to stay in for longer periods of time. But from a mental health point of view and just to freshen up, they will have the odd outing back home. But there'll be an education process. Management are having that tomorrow, the players tomorrow afternoon. and then there will be an education process with family members for when they do go home, because this tournament's so important for the communities, not just ourselves, to give something for everybody to look forward to. So we've got to play our part, obviously, making sure that our squad is intact the best we can be under the current environment, and make sure that the show does go on.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you.
Hi Wayne, Beth here, you're right. Obviously last year was your first Six Nations, just seeing if there's anything you're going to do differently going into your second one.
Yeah, there are a lot of things differently. First one is win more games, clearly. But it's how we go about that. The learnings we've taken from not only the first Six Nations, but also the learnings from the autumn series. And there've been a few, both in what we know about the players, about each other as management group, applying our trade at this level of the game. And also our game itself, which didn't function as well as we would have liked in the last campaign. So, and I'm talking post-COVID now, as post-lockdown as opposed to pre-lockdown, where I thought we were heading in a reasonable direction. So, no, plenty to do, plenty to improve on, and there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes in terms of our planning, in terms of the way we're going to be playing the game in this competition. So we are making some tweaks.
You say about learnings. What was your biggest personal learning last year?
For me personally, look, there were so many learnings, to be honest, about how people operate under pressure. Obviously, it's a different level of pressure altogether. And for me, it's about having to make some tough decisions. They are big decisions, and you realise that it's people's careers. It's playing for your country is a big thing. It affects individuals with families and all sorts of things. So, look, it's making sure that we do all the planning, all the research, all the reviewing, previewing, so that we can make the best decisions possible, really.
And last one from me, we talked about last year, we'll try and put that beside us a little bit, but, does this Six Nations become more about getting the confidence back, not necessarily looking too much to the future in that World Cup ahead? Yeah,
we're definitely looking at the here and now, and making sure that this group now, we focus on the learnings, we make sure that we put them in place, and we get better performances. In terms of the environment, in terms of the work that we've been doing, I think there's been no lack of work ethic. I think everybody's rolled their sleeves up and done a great job. It's a very compatible group. I think now it's just a matter of making sure we control everything that we can control. Individuals take responsibility in terms of on the playing field and on the training field, making sure that we get our best performances out there on the track over the 80 minutes. And we weren't able to do that in the last campaign. As I said, I think in parts of the Six Nations pre-lockdown, we were playing some good rugby. We've got to make sure that we're playing good, solid rugby over the 80 minutes, giving ourselves the best opportunity to win every game. And it's certainly something we'll be working very, very hard at achieving. But in saying that, where we have close calls to make, we've still got an eye, obviously, on 2023. We can't drop the ball in terms of our development going forward.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Wayne. The shadow of coronavirus is looming large. I mean, Rhys Jones has gone into isolation today. How confident are you that the show's going to get on the road and finish?
Well, I guess it's up to each group to do the best they can to make sure that happens. In terms of our group, I think we had 700 odd tests throughout the autumn, all coming back negative. So we think we did a pretty good job in relation to COVID and making sure that we gave ourselves every opportunity to front and have everybody available, not only in the playing group, but also the management group. So this time around, we'll be doing an extra layer of testing, I think twice a week now rather than once. We'll be staying in our bubble a lot longer than we were previously, and we were in the last bubble, or in the autumn series, we were in longer than we were in the Six Nations pre-COVID situation. So we're doing everything we think we can to mitigate the risks involved.
I mean, obviously the last Six Nations only finished a few months ago. There's a Lions tour coming though. I mean, do you see the Lions tour going ahead, and what are your thoughts about moving it to the UK?
Well, look, that's those are discussions that are going on behind the scenes, obviously, with the Lions personnel. And, we get little updates from time to time. You probably know more than I do, but with our focus obviously being on the Six Nations, I think everyone would like to see the Lions go ahead, but I guess the health risks are paramount at the moment, and we'll let other people make those decisions.